The Sangre de Cristo Conspiracy. Chapter 3. The Silence of the Hacienda. The ride to Don Carlos Montoya's hacienda was short, a mere 3 miles north of the Taos Plaza. But the silence that enveloped them as they approached was profound. Even Alcalde Vigil, usually voluble and quick to offer pronouncements, seemed subdued by the palpable miasma of death that clung to the place. Ignacio, riding slightly behind Hartwell on the Alcalde, kept casting nervous glances towards the shuttered windows of the main house, as if expecting Montoya's ghost to materialize. The hacienda itself was substantial, a rambling adobe structure built around a central courtyard, its thick walls offering a promise of coolness and security that had been brutally violated. Cottonwood trees, their leaves just beginning to hint at autumn gold, lined the acequia that brought water to the modest fields and orchard. It was, Hartwell noted, a prosperous holding, reflecting Montoya's status. There were no obvious signs of a struggle outside. The main gates were closed, but not barred, and the packed earth at the entrance showed a confusion of recent tracks: horses, mules, the smaller prints of chickens, and a dog. But nothing that immediately screamed of a clandestine assault. "He's Majordomo Rafael, and the other servants gathered in the kitchen, Marshal," Vigil said, his voice low. "They're terrified. Maria, the girl who found him, is with them. She is distraught, but she will speak with you." Hartwell nodded. "I want to see the study first." Exactly as it was when Don Carlos was found. Has anything been disturbed since Maria fled? "Only by myself and Ignacio when we first confirmed her story," Vigil replied. "We touched nothing we didn't have to. The body is still there. I thought it best you see it before it was moved for burial." A grim necessity. Hartwell dismounted, handing Diablo's reins to Ignacio. "Stay with the horses. Keep an eye out. Alcalde, lead the way." The heavy wooden door to the hacienda creaked open, and they stepped into the cool, dim interior of a wide zaguán, or covered passage. The air inside was stale, tinged with the lingering, sickly sweet scent of blood that Hartwell knew all too well. He followed Vigil through a sun-drenched courtyard, surprisingly peaceful, with its potted geraniums and a soft bubbling fountain, now tragically ironic in its serenity. The contrast with what lay beyond the study door was jarring. Vigil paused before a thick carved door, his hand hesitating on the latch. "This is it, Marshal." Hartwell's steel-gray eyes took in the door, the frame, and the floor. No obvious marks of forced entry here either. He pushed it open slowly. The room was as Maria described, yet seeing it firsthand sent a chill down Hartwell's spine that had little to do with the thick adobe walls. The chaos was palpable. Papers scattered like fallen leaves, the overturned chair, the dark, ugly stain on the earthen floor where Don Carlos Montoya's life had pooled. and Montoya himself, a vibrant, commanding presence in life, now reduced to a still, silent effigy of violence. His eyes were wide, fixed on some unseen horror, his mouth agape in a silent shout. The rich fabric of his poncho was stiff, with dried blood around the single devastating wound on his chest. Hartwell stepped into the room, his senses on high alert. He moved with quiet deliberation, his gaze sweeping every detail. He noted the position of the body, relative to the desk and the door. Montoya hadn't been sitting at his desk when he was shot. He'd been standing, perhaps facing his killer, or turning towards the door. The angle of the wound would tell more, but that was for a closer examination. "The murder weapon, Alcalde," Hartwell said, his voice a low murmur, not looking away from the scene. "You said a Harkin rifle was suspected." Vigil nodded, his face pale. "The size of the wound, Ignacio saw it clearly, clean, powerful, like the American guns." Hartwell knelt beside the body, his expression grim but professional. He avoided disturbing Montoya more than necessary, but his eyes were keen. The entry wound was indeed large caliber, consistent with a Harkin. There was little blackening from powder burns, suggesting the shot had been taken from at least a few feet away, not point blank. He scanned the floor around and under Montoya. No spent cartridge, but that wasn't surprising. A man using a muzzle loader wouldn't leave a brass casing. He'd be looking for a lead ball, perhaps, if it had passed through, but given the man's bulk and the likely close range, it was probably still lodged inside him. His attention shifted to the desk. It was a massive piece of furniture, cluttered with the tools of Montoya's trade. Quills, inkwells, sanders, stacks of official documents, ledgers bound in cracked leather. Many papers were on the floor, some near the body, and some further away. Hartwell picked one up, a trade manifest for a shipment of beaver pelts, detailing taxes owed. He scanned it quickly. Nothing unusual. He moved around the desk, his eyes missing nothing. The strongbox beneath the desk was as Maria had described it. Iron banded, heavy, and conspicuously open, its contents gone. Hartwell peered inside. No, empty. He ran a gloved finger along the inside. Dust. No, not just dust. A faint, almost imperceptible trace of something fine, like gold dust. Interesting. Had the cash itself been stored here temporarily, or just some part of it? Was this strongbox always kept here, Alcalde? Sí, Marshal. Don Carlos often worked late. He would keep the day's tax collections in it until they could be formally deposited, or prepared for transport to Santa Fe. Hartwell straightened, his gaze returning to the scattered papers. It looks like someone was searching for something specific. A simple thief taking the silver from the strongbox might not have caused such disarray with the papers, unless he was panicked. Or unless the silver wasn't the primary target. He began a more systematic search of the papers, carefully lifting them, checking front and back. Most were mundane bureaucratic forms, letters of credit, records of duties paid or contested. He found Montoya's personal seal, a silver letter opener, a half-finished letter to a cousin in Chihuahua. Then, tucked beneath the heavy ledger that had fallen to the floor, he found a small, leather-bound journal. It was plain, unmarked. He opened it. Montoya's handwriting, elegant and precise, filled the pages. Hartwell's Spanish was more than up to the task. He scanned the recent entries. Much of it detailed his administrative tasks. But then, about 2 weeks back, the tone changed. Success! After so many years of whispers and dead ends. The coordinates passed down by the great-grandfather have proven true. The angel's share, as he called it, is real. The church will rejoice, and the republic will finally have the means to secure this territory. I must be cautious. Others have sought it. Others still claim a right. Hartwell's eyebrows rose. The angel's share. An interesting euphemism for the Sangre de Cristo cache. The entry confirmed Montoya had found it, and recently. He flipped forward. Met today with an agent, an American. He claims to represent certain collectors of antiques in the East. He proposes a way to convert some of the less monetarily valuable but historically significant items into hard currency. Says it would be discreet. I am wary. The governor expects the entirety of the cash, yet the practicalities of transporting and securing such a diverse treasure, it gives one pause. This man, Mr. Smith, is persuasive. He speaks of protecting these sacred items from neglect or theft by putting them in appreciative hands. Mr. Smith, as common a name as Juan. Hartwell committed it to memory. This complicated Vigil's simple theory of outraged American traders. This suggested Montoya himself might have been contemplating embezzlement, or at least a very questionable private treaty. Another entry, just 3 days before his death. The pressure mounts. Received a veiled threat today. A representative of the old families reminded me of their ancestral claims to anything taken from this land during the Spanish era. They imply the cash is theirs by right. Fools! It belongs to Mexico now. And Father Miguel, he has also made inquiries. His concern for the spiritual heritage of the church, most pronounced. Everyone wants a piece. Hartwell closed the journal, a grim understanding dawning. Montoya hadn't just found a treasure. He'd unearthed the hornet's nest of competing interests. The Mexican government, American collectors, old Spanish families, the church. Any one of them might have had a motive. "Alcalde," Hartwell said, holding up the journal. "Did Don Carlos mention a Mr. Smith to you? An American, interested in artifacts?" Vigil frowned. "No, Marshal. He was not always forthcoming about his dealings. He felt the regular channels were sometimes inefficient. And the old families. Any particular names come to mind who might feel they have a claim on Spanish colonial treasures?" Vigil looked uneasy. "There are several descendants of the original conquistadores. They hold on to their pride, their land, what little is left of their influence. The Ortegas, the Romeros, they are proud people. They would not take kindly to what they see as their heritage being handed over to the new government, or worse, sold off." Hartwell nodded slowly. The web was growing more tangled with every revelation. He completed his survey of the room, noting the single window, shuttered but not barred from the inside. It opened onto the courtyard, easy enough for someone to enter or leave, if they knew the layout. He noted the lack of any defensive wounds on Montoya's hands. He hadn't fought back, or hadn't had the chance. This suggested either a swift, unexpected attack, or that he knew his attacker and didn't perceive a threat until it was too late. "All right, Alcalde," Hartwell said, stepping back from the immediate area around the body. "I've seen enough here for now. I need to speak with the servant girl, Maria." They found Maria in the Hacienda's kitchen, a large, smoky room filled with the comforting aroma of baking bread, now doing little to soothe the nerves of the household staff. She was a petite young woman, her eyes red-rimmed and wide with lingering terror, clutching a rosary in her trembling hands. An older woman, presumably the cook, sat beside her, murmuring words of comfort. Hartwell approached gently, removing his hat. His voice was soft and reassuring. "Maria, I am Marshal Hartwell. I know this is difficult, but I need you to tell me what you saw, what you heard." He let her tell her story in her own words, listening patiently, much as the alcalde must have done. But Hartwell was listening for different things, the nuances, the small details that a frightened mind might overlook or a biased interrogator might dismiss. "You said you smelled gunpowder, Maria?" Hartwell asked when she paused. "Si, Marshal. Faint, but sharp. And blood. Sangre." She shuddered. "And nothing else? No unfamiliar voices before you entered the study? No sounds of a struggle? Horses leaving in a hurry?" Maria bit her lip, thinking hard. "The dogs, they did not bark during the night. Not that I recall. They usually bark if strangers approach the outer walls. But last night, no, nothing. It is strange. Bruno, he is a fierce guardian." Hartwell filed that away. Dogs not barking could mean they knew the intruder, or they had been silenced. And Don Carlos, had he seemed worried or frightened in the days leading up to this? She shook her head. Not frightened, Marshal. Excited. He was happy. He hummed sometimes. He told Consuela, the cook, that soon he would bring great honor and wealth to Taos. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. He was a good man, Marshal. Despite his tempers at times, he did not deserve this. Did he have any visitors yesterday or the day before that were unusual? Maria frowned in concentration. Yesterday was quiet, but 2 days ago, yes, a man came, an Americano, I think, dressed like a merchant from Santa Fe, not a trapper. He was with Don Carlos in the study for a long time. I heard raised voices once, but only for a moment. Then when he left, Don Carlos seemed troubled, more thoughtful than usual. This Americano, could you describe him? Not tall, not short, hair the color of sand. He had a nervous way about him, his eyes always moving. It matched the vague impression Elena Vasquez had formed of Mr. Smith. Hartwell thanked Maria for her courage. He had gleaned several crucial details. Montoya's excitement about the treasure, the visit from the nervous American, the silence of the dogs, the reference in the journal to multiple interested parties. The picture forming was far from the simple narrative of a robbery by resentful traders. This had layers, like the ancient land itself. As they prepared to leave the hacienda, Hartwell paused, looking back at the silent house. The sun was beginning to dip towards the western horizon, casting long, somber shadows. Alcalde, Hartwell said, his voice firm. I want this hacienda sealed. No one in or out without my permission. Post one of your men here, if you can spare one. I will need to come back, perhaps with someone who knows tracking. He was thinking of men like Bear Thompson, whose skills might prove invaluable, even if he was currently among the broadly accused. Vigil nodded, though a flicker of his earlier suspicion returned. You still think the Americans... I think, Alcalde, Hartwell said, meeting the man's gaze directly, that Don Carlos Montoya made enemies in many quarters. He was negotiating with an American collector. He was pressured by old Spanish families, and the church itself had an interest. The hawk and rifle is a clue, certainly, but it's not a conviction, and whomever it implicates. He knew his next stop would have to be Elena Vasquez's trading post. She was the unofficial historian of Taos' secrets, and he had a feeling she already knew more about Mr. Smith and Montoya's clandestine dealings than she would readily admit. The silence of the hacienda had yielded its first whispers of the conspiracy, but Hartwell suspected the loudest voices were yet to be heard.